Okay. Hopefully this video will work because this is the second time I've sat down to film it. Unfortunately, the last one froze halfway through and I could hear the audio, but my face was just sort of contorted into this. Right. Welcome. For those who are new here, I'm Kim and my channel is called The Eco Tree, but at the end of each month I do a sort of a roundup plus Q&A type deal, and I call it the coffee and craft chat. It's meant to be quite informal, hence the rambling already. So I start by sharing my makes and whips for the previous month. That's not going to take long because in March I made virtually nothing. And then I move on to review my goals that I set myself for the previous month. That will also not take long because you'll see. And then I set myself some new and shiny goals. And then after that, I usually pick a question that someone has asked me in the community tab and I answer it. But most of the time I get distracted and answer quite a few because I'm rubbish at picking stuff. And I do all of that while the farmers bomb up and down the track, checking on their lambs, which I still don't have any around the house. Usually at this time of year, when I look out of the window, I see little lambs bouncing around, but I have no lambs bouncing around. And I'm not happy about it. But as always, there is coffee, and so we're doing okay. Okay, my one and only make for March was this. It's for the eagle-eyed of you, it's my logo, but embroidered. Because I thought the one that I'm using at the moment is the little watercolor painting that I made, and while I love it, I thought, wouldn't it be more on brand to embroider it? So, ha ha ha. And if you're watching this on desktop, if you look in the bottom right hand corner, you might even see this there. And eventually it will roll out across all of my branding, darling. But of course, in true Kim style, it will roll out slowly because I'm a one-person show and I can only do so much. Lots of plates spinning and I'm spinning them all. I'm dropping a lot as well, but we'll come back to that. So that was my one and only make for March, and hopefully I will do better in April because I do find that when I create stuff, not just for the shop, but for myself, and I try my hand at some new mediums and things and allow myself the space to suck at something, that's when I find that my creativity in other areas it gets like a super boost and all of the ideas start flooding in. Whereas if I just focus on work stuff, I end up getting stuck in a rut. So this is why doing things like this is so important. Moving on then to my goals for March, and the first one was getting the patches in the shop. Did I do it? Did I heck? I haven't quite finished making them, but they are off the hoop. Last time in my video I said I wanted to get them on the hoop and off the hoop, and I've done it. But those of you who are a member of my channel memberships here will know I do these weekly check-ins in the memberships, and I think for the past 3 weeks in a row it's been to get the patches off the hoop, and yeah. Anyway, so yes, that was a bit embarrassing. I had set March the 30th as being the drop date. March the 30th came and went and I had to put up another date, so hopefully this Wednesday will be the date that the patches go up. Who knows? And it will be the first time that I've still not quite hit 20 items in my shop. You don't need a certain amount of items in your shop, but in my mind, I would like at least 20 items in my shop. That's just a personal goal. I'll have 18. But yes, for those of you that have been here for a little while, you'll know that one of my biggest challenges on Etsy is just keeping stock in my shop. Hand embroidery is very, very slow, and I need to work on a way to scale that up somehow. But I'm coming to that in a second. So yes, moving on. My second goal. Some of you might be familiar with the March Meet the Maker challenge. It's a hashtag challenge on Instagram. It started years ago. And I thought, rather than focusing on it on Instagram, I thought it would be a great idea to use the daily prompts as a way and a push to get videos up on TikTok. I did not do it every day. I did make some videos and I did not reach that goal either. Okay, so March was a bit of a failure all round, and yet it was also one of those months that I felt like I was constantly busy. And yet at the end of the month, I feel like I've got very little to show for it. But there was an awful lot of life stuff going on in the background that was demanding my attention, and I think that slowed my progress down. And most of my energy just went to keeping things chugging along. All right then, so that brings us nicely to my goal setting for April. Now, the temptation here is to set myself a lot of goals to make up for my lack of progress in March. However, I like to plan with the worst version of myself at the forefront of my mind, if that makes sense. And when I say the worst version of myself, I mean energy-wise. So I basically try to imagine that if I were to wake up every single day feeling a little bit low on energy, what would I be able to do and achieve in that day realistically that would keep me moving forward. Obviously, I'm not going to feel like that every single day. There will be days where I'll be bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and then I can plow on forward. But I do tend to find that I am more productive and get more done if I don't pile too much stuff on my plate. So, with that in mind, I am going to give myself just 3 goals. And the first one, obviously, is going to be the patches, to get them up in the shop. That's goal number 1. Goal number 2 is going to be to think about my next evergreen item. And I am going to have to pivot hard and fast because the world has changed a lot in just the past month alone. Now, this might only make sense if you've been watching my videos for a while. I have spoken about how this year I wanted to try and create a few items that would bring in consistent sales in the shop, and they were going to be my sort of gift shop items, I guess. Basically, I just feel that my items that I wanted to use to bring in consistent sales needs to be tweaked, because some of the things that I was going to focus on, like Mother's Day, Father's Day, graduation, that sort of thing, I think fewer people are going to be buying the sort of cards that I had in mind, because money is going to be tighter this year. So I need to pivot again. My word for the year was light, but I feel like it should have been pivot, which I can't say without hearing Ross in my head. But this is the trouble. Often running a handmade business, you do end up having to pivot and change and evolve very quickly. So yes, that is a very rambly way of saying that my second goal is to try to come up with another evergreen item for the shop, which is not one of the things that I already had planned. Thanks, life, for once again messing things up. Okay, and the last goal, it's going to be to research how I can scale the shop up a little bit. Those are my goals for April. Fingers crossed I have more success with them than I did with my March goals. Okay, question time. And I appreciate that I've been waffling on a little bit, so I'm going to dive straight into this. The first question was from My Iridescent Love. Hello. And you asked, you've already covered this subject, but after making my first TikTok, I'm back into the realms of self-doubt and the constant question of who would be interested in what I'm doing. I am with you. How do you keep momentum on all of the different platforms while still trying to keep fresh ideas coming for your business, as well as being mum and wife, and in my case, still working? Wow. Wow, 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 wow. How do I keep up momentum? I don't. It might not be what you wanted to hear, but if last week when I had to drop my weekly video schedule, that doesn't prove my point, I don't know what does. When things get busy, I just tend to focus on the things that keep money coming in. So I guess you could break it down into 4 main areas. I mentioned earlier, plan for the most sluggish version of yourself, because that way you're always going to be on track and you might even just surprise yourself. And I've mentioned the importance of dropping plates and not holding on to plans too tightly, because life is going to change around you and you need to be able to adapt straight away. Because, you know, as handmade business owners, we haven't got enough to do. And 3, no, you cannot do it all, and you are just going to have to focus on the plates that are the most important. And if you struggle to identify what are the most important plates, focus on the ones that are bringing in the money. You have to keep on checking in with your goals regularly. And this is why I do the weekly check-ins on the channel memberships, because I just find that sometimes sharing your intentions for the week can help. Obviously, with my March goals, it didn't help much because so much was going off all at once. But you can only control what happens to you to a certain extent. Life is going to happen, and that's why you need to plan in wriggle room into your schedule, because you're going to need it. So yeah, those are my tips, if that helps at all. Okay, second question, and I've chosen a question by Laura again, because she is coming out with the best questions. I mean, wowza, Laura. I'd like to know how you pitched the idea to your husband about having a YouTube channel and a handmade business as your means of income. Was he always on board? Oh, so much for wrapping up this video. There's so much here. Okay, so there's a little bit of a backstory. My daughter was a year old and I was working part-time, and I already had my Etsy shop, and I decided to make it an official job. And because I was already contributing to the bills, I didn't so much pitch it to him as tell him it was happening. The way I saw it, because I know that everybody's financial situation is very, very different. Ours was, and still is, that we cannot live off either of our paychecks alone. It's a combination of the two. So Dan was happy for me to start my own business, providing I could still contribute the amount that I was contributing at the time, which I could. So the way I saw it is what I did in my time then was kind of up to me, and if he didn't like it, tough. If it had meant that I would have had to have quit my job and then he would have had to have taken on all of the bills, for example, that would have been a very different thing. And yes, I would have had to have pitched it, and I'm not so sure that we could have done it, to be brutally honest. But as I say, it didn't change our financial setup at all, so I did it. However, we did encounter issues in the early days, because obviously I had very little time to spend on my business, and I had an hour a day, sometimes 2 if I was really lucky, while my daughter napped. And for the parents of young kids will know, it can be quite challenging when they grow to the age where they start dropping their naps, because you can see your time just being taken away. And it's so sad. But there was also a lot of evening work and weekend work, and I can distinctly remember a custom order of bridesmaids' dresses that I took on, which went really, really well, but the amount of work that had to go into it during the evenings and during weekends just to get it done, it nearly broke me. And yes, I think there were boundaries that we had to discover, and we only could discover them by stomping all over them, really, with regards to time, because whenever I was working in the evenings or on the weekends, it was time taken away from my family. And obviously there was the issue of childcare there, and I think we tussled a little bit with how important it was for me to be able to spend this extra time to grow the business, because while I was tilting hard and fast into the business, I wouldn't have made it what I have if I hadn't have put that work in at the start. And if I'm being brutally honest, there were times where I think he was a little bit resentful of that. The question did come up as to whether or not I had chosen the right time to start a business. And this was a slightly different topic as well, but I did struggle with getting people to treat it as a business and not as a little paying hobby. So I had to constantly correct people when they would use the term hobby or little side hustle, And I'd have to go, no, it's a business. It's a business. And I had to change the way I spoke about it as well. For example, little business. It had to be a business, not little, not dismissing it. And it was a thing. Maybe I need to do a video all on this, but it wasn't easy at the beginning. And I felt like I was fighting to defend my business for a long time. Needless to say, when we moved back to Wales, I had to quit my job. And I had built the business to a point that I didn't need to get another job because it was making a lot of money and I was able to pay my bills completely with my Etsy shop, which right now seems insane, but that was the reality. And so suddenly people weren't calling it a little hobby anymore. And then YouTube came in over the last year. YouTube is quite a new addition to the business, and that was completely by accident. This was literally just something I started doing to give me a creative outlet and to help me keep my sanity during lockdown and the times of online learning with my daughter, which was a fresh hell, frankly. But it's gone. It's a memory. It's just a very, very fresh memory still. But yes, I just made the videos more for me than anything. And I was as shocked as anyone when I got monetized as quickly as I did. And when I could see the amount that I was making on AdSense, again, I thought, that's not true. That's a scam. I didn't trust it. I kept saying to Dan, until that money actually goes into my bank account, I don't believe this is real. And even when, I haven't told anybody this, but even when it hit my bank account, I kept it for 2 months. 2 months I didn't touch that money because I was waiting for someone to go, oh, that was a mistake. You shouldn't have got that. Can we have it back, please? And obviously, because it was taking off and it was helping to pay the bills at a time when we saw our income take a dive, as everybody did during lockdown, Dan was very on board and as curious about the whole thing as I was. I think he's less curious about it now. He's just kind of just taken it as given that that's what I do. And I think, bless his heart, he does get a little bit bored when I start talking about analytics and stuff. But I love that stuff and I don't have anybody to talk to about it. So tough luck, Dan. I never call him Dan. That is so weird. But Dan, if you're still watching my video, thank you. Because he does. He's like my biggest fan. All right, and the last question, and I put this in because it's about Critical Role, and I just love it. Critical Role, incidentally, it's a channel here on YouTube where a bunch of actors play Dungeons and Dragons, and each episode of their current campaign is about 3 to 4 hours long, and it's perfect for when I need to stitch because I don't have to keep looking at the screen and I can get lost in the story, and I'm just a little bit obsessed. So, Useless Rogue, you asked, I'm going to pander. If you could apply a lesson from Critical Role to your business, what would it be? Well, I'm kind of already doing it, and that is to make a plan and then when it comes to it, ignore the plan and do something completely different. Oh, yeah. I love it. I love it. Every time they sit down and they make a plan of action for something, you're just listening going, you're not going to do that. You're going to end up doing something completely different. Someone's going to run over there and someone's going to get hurt. I've been rambling on for too long. If you have made it to the end of this video, I'm actually quite curious. If you've made it to the end of this video, get in the comments and just write pivot, but in capital letters like Ross style. Just because I'm curious to see how many people watch these videos right to the end. And then everybody will be like, what? Why is everybody writing pivot? Okay, right. I will see you next week with a regular video. Thanks for watching and bye-bye.